Howdy, everyone. I am Paul Thompson, and this is my Project Hell, where for the next 20 minutes or so, Kelly and I are going to throw away the corporate lingo, all the PM gobbledygook, and really talk no-nonsense project management, giving you guys plain solutions to what are real project problems.
And I'm the other co-host, Kelly Schockler. And today we're going to do one of our change it up programming moves, and we're going to bring you a compelling hot topic deep dive. Have you ever wondered how Paul and I come up with these hot topics? It all starts with a weekly conversation Paul and I have as we plan the upcoming My Project Hell episode. And usually Paul kicks it off with whatever tasty meat he's either barbecued or slow cooked over the weekend, with a dash of yard work, chore storytelling thrown in, and which always includes some little story about how he broke his chainsaw. But then when we finally start discussing our own project hell and client issues, themes start floating up and we find our topic. And that's not the only way we get our hot topics, though. Once in a while, our listeners will throw down something they'd like us to discuss. So if you've got a hot topic you'd like Paul and I to consider in the future, just drop us an email at myprojecthell.com. And with that,
I'm
putting the hot topic. Yeah, the hot topic intros in your hands.
What's topic. All right.
What's the captivating deep dive
today we're doing a deep dive, right? And it's going to be on project influence and power. And in order to set the stage, I want to tell you a couple of things that we'll bring back around, right? So back in 1936, a successful salesman lecturer by the name of Dale Carnegie published a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. Now, that book, seriously, that book has sold over 60 million copies.
Wow, I'm surprised.
And is arguably, easily one of the top selling books ever of all times. Now, you go from there to the FBI, who, when they conduct hostage negotiations, two of them are assigned to do nothing but look for who has what influence as the hostage negotiation kind of moves through the process, and to talk and relate back to the main negotiator. So they feel it's that important to kind of keep an eye on how influence is shifting across hostage negotiations, which literally are life and death situations. Now you jump to probably what you all know better than me, is that today's influencers are marketing to us all the time, right? In our modern online word of mouth social media, where they're trying to persuade us to buy this, that, or the other thing so we can live our best life. And that's all great, right? Those three things are phenomenally interesting to know, but what does it have to do with project management? Well, as a project manager, I very seldom, and I don't think, Kelly, you're much different, right? We definitely don't have people reporting to us from the team, the stakeholders, so we have no real authority over them to make them do what we want.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
Or what we need to for the project. It's just the way project managers are. But good project managers have learned how to identify that flow of influence and power on their projects. And the great ones can harness that power and change the direction of the outcomes that they're managing. Kelly, where do we start to get into this?
Dale Carnegie and FBI agents. That's good. I like that. So when I'm thinking about project influencers, I just go to the obvious, right? Your stakeholders, the people who are making things go so well, you got to pinch yourself because you think you're in a fairy tale. Or the overlords who are tasking you with boiling oceans, maybe creating a fantastical puppet show about things that have nothing to do with your project, or stealing your budget to fund their own pet project, right? A few examples. And I actually think about two things, and one I'll get to in a moment. But right now, I think I want to focus on the idea of stakeholders, people as project influencers. And I know the first thing I like to do is to look externally for answers. what's causing this mayhem or glory in my world? And it's those wily cat-like stakeholders. It's their fault. But then, I'm like, okay, I got to look in the mirror here. And so how often do we take that inward look? I guess I'm going to go here, Paul. Taking an inward look at what I think is the biggest project influencer up there, might vie for first or second spot, and that's us, the PM. And even though, to your point, Paul, we don't have a lot or any managerial authority or leadership level kind of sway, I think that as PMs, we can have a really big amount of influence on some of the project variables, and depending on what type of organization you're in, how project management is set up, if it is at all, your PM influence could be a thing that makes or breaks the project. And to be specific, I'm thinking about in the context of having a healthy measure of influence over our project team culture. So how are you cultivating your team norms, your team dynamics, that process for getting things done? You're using your influence as a leader of your PM team. And I know I've mentioned this book by Patrick Lencioni a few times in some of our episodes, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And to me, knowing how to use your position and influence as a project manager within your team to foster trust, collaboration, accountability, and getting people committed to the results, that is using your influence in a super powerful way. And so I think most PMs can leverage their influence with the team, even if in a constrained or restricted environment. So before you go complaining about, those ocean boiling Grinches or the puppet show taskmasters, take a little time to just reflect on what you can do in this moment right now with the level of influence you might have over your team. Okay, so now that said, Paul, I'm kind of looking to you to talk about the other influential project stakeholders. So,
Sure.
Riddle me this. What's our ability as PMs?
Right. So let's talk about identifying the flow of influence, right? Things we can do to understand how it moves through our project through the corporate culture that we are managing this project within, right? One of the things that my teams will do is early on in the project, right, when we're starting to get through things, obviously you look at, the organizational chart, right? That just comes with some authority that's granted to you by position. But after you work through that, you start to see in the meetings how certain people, when they're talking, seem to control the situation. So we'll assign one of our project managers in our early meetings to really focus on that, just like the FBI does, right? Watch the dynamics, the group dynamics of the team. Now, see who's doing a lot of talking. Now, I will tell you that not very often is the person who's doing all the talking all that influential. They're kind of trying to pretend, typically, they're trying to grab it, but they're not usually the most, influential person in the room. Look for who they're talking to a lot. Look who's extremely quiet in the room and taking it all in, but that people might be looking at for, agreement and trying to do these different things, just to make sure that they're getting that, yep, do I get the nod from you? Because those are the people that have the influence. Also, oftentimes what happens that we've found is the person with the real influence has set somebody up to do a lot of the talking, because there might be a peer group of a lot of VPs and one person's trying to float an idea. They aren't sure how all of their peers are going to go. So they've assigned, hey, Jane, John, I want you guys to be arguing this point, right? And then I'm just going to pay attention. And then they can choose how they see who they have to influence in the backroom politicking. If you want a really great book on this or opportunity to get more detail, Daniel Pink, he has a master class on sales and persuasion, and it goes deep into that social science on group dynamics, because you find out an awful lot just watching who's talking, who's not, who occasionally, doesn't seem to have the title, but everybody looks to for agreement. So that's a way to spot and understand that flow of influence through a meeting.
I like that book by Daniel Pink. I think it's called To Sell is Human. Right?
Could be. I've taken the master class.
Okay. Yeah. So I like that. And then when you mentioned start at the org chart, I've been in companies where there is no org chart.
Right.
It's like, so you have to be really good at observing. And a lot of times we don't have another resource along riding shotgun with us to do that observation. And we're kind of, multitasking, running the meeting, trying to observe. It makes it hard. So I just thought of another forum that we could use as project managers to identify project influencers and maybe what their level of influencing is really listening and tuning into in our stakeholder interviews, trying to discern, what are they interested in and how much power do they have? What kind of influence does this dear stakeholder wield? And so it's not only listening though, but to me, it's asking the right questions. You can learn so much by asking the right questions and then shutting up. We all like to talk about ourselves, and listening to what's being said and what's not being said is also more interesting sometimes. So let them talk about their role, their responsibilities in the organization, because you can get some surprising and useful information if you're deeply listening and observing in that one-to-one situation. What do you think about that idea?
No, that's absolutely right. And like you say, I never learned anything when I was doing all the talking, right? You're learning as you're listening. So pay attention to those things. And really, once you've kind of figured out and mapped the group dynamics on your project through your stakeholders, and it's going to change, right? When you're dealing with your engineers, you might have different influencers than when you're dealing with your business stakeholders.
Oh, definitely.
Out there. So you have to build up a couple of different mind maps for this. But once you do, how do you harness that, right? We've talked about it. And I have, I've got a technique that goes hand in hand with project management, and it always moves the needle. And it's two pieces, right? It is, you write your one-pager analysis. You refer to it as an S-bar. I think you have some examples of that on your website. I have the one-pager, but it is get your issue, your concern, whatever it is, just tightly focused and very concise. And then take all that you know about that influential flow and do your paper route, right? Who are the people that if they get behind your idea or your need, right? I need to double my budget if we're going to do these things. Get behind the people who, if they agree with it, it'll go, and work there. Start your paper out there and then trace it along. And once you start to understand this, that's great for you. One of the things we found is because we see a lot of different groups, because we consult to different organizations, oftentimes we can't be the one to sell the idea or to push the idea. But now we start to train our project owners, right? And help them understand, okay, you told me that these three people are influential. Here's the one pager. Would you like me to go with you? How do we sit down with them? And you start to train your owners. And I tell you, that will get you more mileage and more goodwill on your project, helping, instruct others and teach them this trick. Phenomenal.
Yeah, who doesn't want to be set up for success like that? And yeah, that's awesome. The thing that I was talking about, how I had thought of two different project influencers. So the other way I was thinking about project influencers in the beginning of the episode had to do with non-human project influences. So yeah, so, and I was thinking, and my mind just wanted to go to scope, schedule, budget, quality, blah, right? And but there's others, and they're the environmental factors, right? So organizational culture, politics, regulations, and then some of the more invisible influences, like how does your organization that you're in respond to change? How's failure handled? How receptive are people to new ideas? These are sometimes invisible and you learn the hard way,
Mhm.
but they are project influences. And I think these can even be risks, right? But I don't
Sure.
think that they're always one and the same. So I was thinking of a story about a non-human project influence that impacted one of my projects back in the early days of project managing. And in this case, the non-human influence was deep cultural resistance to doing things differently than the way that they've always been done. And here I am coming in on the new project and trying to get the team to, hey, let's do stand-ups, a stand-up style. It'll be more efficient, and no matter how hard I tried to get buy-in or sell what's in it for them, no, they wanted to stick to their traditional way of giving status updates because that is the way they've always done it. And literally no one in the organization was going to encourage them to try something new. It was baked in.
Sure.
And it influenced my ability to create more efficiencies in the project in multiple ways. But looking back, I could have done way better at targeting the friendly, influential stakeholders who had the power, and then try to harness their support through relationship building and getting their buy-in and support to help, bring that in.
Mm-hmm. So when you first kind of brought up this topic, I had to scratch my head a little bit. It wasn't as clear to me, but as you've talked and as you've explained it, it really sort of struck a tone with me, because a lot of times those non-human, right? Those environmental factors, they have such influence over understanding the flow of the human ones, right?
Right.
And you pointed it out, right? If I'm working in an organization that is heavily governed by outsourced government regulations, it's a no duh for me that our compliance officer is going to wield huge amounts of influence. And that's the person that, if I try to get something by that they don't agree with, it's going to hit a brick wall. So that's where I need to start to change, to make sure that I'm in alignment with what they want, and they're going to help me push through my idea. Because once you get the big, gorilla in the room to do it for you, you're just getting out of the way. So that is something, definitely, I appreciate you kind of opening my thought process to those non-human environmental kind of components.
You're welcome.
Yeah. All right. So influence, right? It changes, it moves, it literally flows. And we've gotten to the point where, we depend on it to get our jobs done. So as we mentioned, right, as project managers, we can control some of the influencers by the culture, the activities we do on our project. We can identify who has that power, that influence, through meetings and one-on-one interactions and questions and participation. And then we can harness that as well by doing our paper routes and having our influencers work for us, not against us. And then finally, don't forget, right? Besides people, there are just things out there that, they influence the way the world works, and we want to take advantage of understanding that. So it's a lot of stuff, and we could probably have 3 more hours worth of discussion on this, but we really had a lot of fun doing this. So
Yeah, thanks. Good wrap up, Paul. I think we'll close us out with an action item for y'all today. We'd love for you to head over to our My Project Hell YouTube channel and click the follow button. And while you're there, feel free to catch up on other episodes that you may have missed. We have replays there. And if you're registered for My Project Hell, which I assume you are, or if you're here live, you'll get a post-show email that's got a very cool offer in it. It's an opportunity to book a free 30-minute coaching session for problem solving with Paul or myself, or both of us, if you want the ultimate torture.
yes. And I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I know Kelly and I had a lot of fun putting this one together, as we do every time. Join us next time when I'm going to surprise Kelly, because what our hot topic is going to be is spiders, snakes, and a big bag of issues.
Yep, that's a surprise. Can't wait.
But if you want to participate, please sign up, drop us an email at myprojecthell@gmail.com, and let us know you'd like to be on Coach's Corner, where we can talk through your issue and you can help other project managers who undoubtedly are facing the same predicament you are. So drop us a note, complete the survey, and we look forward to next time.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks for being here and listening. See you next time.